The fog in Oregon still hung thick like a soft gray blanket when 6-year-old Maya Jensen stood quietly outside the entrance of Pine Hollow Elementary School. Her small frame looked even smaller next to the wide, red brick walls of the school. She wasn't playing. She wasn't talking. She wasn't even moving. Her tiny hands were wrapped tightly around a thick, braided leash, the leash of Zeus, her dog. Her protector. Zeus wasn't just any dog. He was a big German shepherd with calm, golden eyes and the still, quiet focus of a soldier who never left his post. Around Maya, the world was busy. Parents called out reminders. Kids ran past her laughing, backpacks swinging and shoes stomping on the wet pavement. But Maya didn't react. She just stood there, perfectly still, eyes on the building ahead. Her breathing was slow and even, just the way her mother had taught her, like counting waves. That rhythm didn't come from peace. It came from practice, from survival. Zeus didn't flinch. He sat close to Maya, his strong body pressed gently against her legs, ears up but relaxed, always listening. For most children, the first day of school meant nerves, maybe a few tears, maybe a big hug before goodbye. But Maya wasn't like most kids. She didn't cry when her mother let go of her hand. She didn't complain. She didn't hesitate. She simply gave one small nod as her mother, Claire Jensen, leaned down and zipped up her jacket a little tighter. "You've got this," Claire whispered as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind Maya's ear. Maya nodded again, her voice so soft it nearly disappeared in the breeze. "I've got Zeus." Claire kissed her daughter's forehead and didn't move for a long second. She just looked at her small, brave girl with the serious eyes and the loyal dog. Then she stepped back and watched them walk toward the school gate together, Maya and Zeus, side by side. From the outside, Maya looked calm, but inside her chest, her heart beat with a rhythm even doctors struggled to understand. Sometimes too fast, sometimes too faint, fragile, uncertain. Maya didn't run like the other kids. She didn't play tag or swing from the monkey bars. Her heart couldn't keep up. Her body was delicate, unpredictable, and every day was carefully planned. Appointments, hospital visits, machines, quiet. Afternoons with coloring books and tea. Claire Jensen had become an expert in watching her daughter breathe. She knew how Maya's lips turned pale when her oxygen dropped. She knew how her breathing shortened when something was wrong. Claire was a single mom, working early shifts at the bakery and answering late-night hospital calls. Her life was built around Maya's breath. Then came Zeus. 3 years ago, Maya had collapsed in the middle of a farmer's market. 1 second laughing over strawberries, the next falling, motionless, onto cold cement. There were sirens, screams, silence. A canine rescue officer who saw the whole thing suggested a therapy dog. At first, Claire wasn't sure. How could a dog help her daughter's heart? Then Zeus arrived. He wasn't just any dog. He was bred for focus, calm under pressure, and connection. And in only a few weeks, he started doing something unbelievable. He would sense Maya's episodes before they happened, nudging her to sit down, letting out a soft whine to alert Claire, pressing gently against Maya's legs like a wall. Zeus wasn't a pet. He was part of her, her anchor, her quiet safety during long 4 drips and loud machines. Zeus lay next to her in every hospital room. He waited outside every exam door. When Maya was scared or too tired to speak, Zeus stayed. With her shield in a world full of uncertainty. That morning, the classroom smelled like fresh crayons and pencil shavings. Sunlight poured through the windows, bouncing off colorful posters and paper butterflies hanging from the ceiling. Maya stepped inside slowly. Zeus followed right beside her. Some kids looked up, their chatter halting as they saw the huge dog walking in. A boy near the front leaned to whisper loudly to his friend. "Why'd she bring a dog? Is she scared or something?" Someone nearby giggled. Zeus kept walking, calm and steady, like he'd done this 100 times. Maya didn't look at them. She had learned how to walk past stares and whispers. But something about this morning felt heavier. There was a tight feeling in her chest she couldn't shake. Then the teacher, Mrs. Sophia Carter, stood up from her desk. Her expression was calm and warm, not even a little surprised. She had been told ahead of time. The nurse had explained everything. Claire had been in that same classroom 2 days before, talking through all the details and handing over stacks of forms. "Welcome, Maya," Mrs. Carter said gently, her voice soft like a lullaby. She walked over, bent to Maya's level, and placed a kind hand on her shoulder. Then she looked down and added, "And welcome, Zeus." That simple sentence, spoken with no extra drama, no hesitation, changed everything. The room quieted. Her tone made it clear to everyone, this is normal. She belongs. He belongs. Maya followed her teacher to a seat by the window. Zeus curled at her feet, head resting near her shoes, his body still but alert. Maya touched his fur lightly every now and then, just to make sure he was still there. The day moved gently. During art, Maya colored a butterfly in soft purple and gold. During math, she whispered, 5. When asked what 2 plus 3 was, then someone dropped their pencil box. It crashed loudly, sending pens and markers skittering across the floor. Maya jumped. Zeus lifted his head. For a second, silence. Then, Maya giggled. It was small, but it was real. Mrs. Carter smiled. Everything seemed fine until it didn't. Mrs. Carter had just started handing out math sheets when she noticed Maya blink twice quickly. Her pencil stopped moving. Her eyes looked distant. Mrs. Carter was already turning when she called, "Maya?" Softly. But Zeus moved faster. He stood, ears alert, nudging Maya's leg with a low, worried whine. Maya tried to stand, but she wobbled, reaching for the desk. And then her knees gave out. Gasps echoed. A chair scraped loudly. A student called her name. Papers fell from Mrs. Carter's hands like leaves in the wind, but Zeus was already in place. He stepped between Maya and the class, calm but alert. His tail stayed low. Then he barked once, twice, 3 times, clear, measured, trained. Everyone stepped back. Mrs. Carter ordered. She stepped forward, but Zeus let out a low growl, not angry, just firm. He was still guarding her. Then, something incredible. Zeus turned, found Maya's backpack, and gently pulled the emergency pouch clipped to it. He brought it to Mrs. Carter with care. She froze, stunned, but then acted. She opened the pouch, pulled out the oxygen mask, and got to work. The nurse was called. The principal was already on the way. Kids were let out, but Zeus stayed right there, watching Maya, listening to her breath. By the end of the school day, the story had already spread like wildfire. No one needed an official announcement. The first graders told the second graders, who whispered to the fifth graders, who ran to the lunch monitors. Maya fainted. The dog saved her. He barked and got the medicine himself. Each retelling was more dramatic than the last. But the truth was enough to amaze on its own. "He's like a superhero," one boy told his mom in the car line. The flood of emails was relentless. Some politely requested action, but others demanded it immediately. Remove the dog. Enforce the rules. Protect the learning environment. Claire could feel her chest tighten as she read the messages. There was no time to lose. Within the hour, she was there. Her bakery apron, still wrapped around her waist, was dusted with flour and butter. It told the story of a life paused. The second the call came in, she dropped the mixing bowl, the dough she'd been kneading left unfinished on the counter. Trays of cookies were still baking in the oven, forgotten. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear herself think as she rushed out of the kitchen. She was driven by the same overwhelming feeling that had gripped her 3 years ago. when she'd last faced something terrifying. Claire pushed through the school doors, breathless and wild-eyed. Every face, every hallway, she scanned them all like a mother searching for her child's breath. For just a moment, she didn't move. Her feet felt as though they were stuck to the floor. Her mind raced, conjuring images no parent should ever have to imagine her daughter, small and still, lips tinged blue, unable to breathe. That gut-wrenching fear, the same terror she had lived through, returned with a vengeance. She followed. The nurse, her steps heavy, dread pressing down on her like a weight she couldn't shake. Then she saw Maya. Her daughter was pale, weak, but awake. A thin blanket was draped over her as she lay in the nurse's office, eyes fluttering. And there, curled beside her, was Zeus, still, silent, watching. Without a second thought, Claire dropped. To her knees, her arms wrapping around Maya first, then immediately reaching for Zeus. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice quivering. "You saved her again." Zeus didn't wag his tail or move an inch. His eyes never left Maya, but in that stillness, Claire realized something. It wasn't training. It wasn't luck. It was love. The school board meeting was set for just 3 days later. The room in the library had emptied of students by then, but the tension hung in the air, thick and palpable. Around the table sat the school board members, the principal, the nurse, Mrs. Carter, and Claire, still visibly shaken, her hands folded tightly in her lap. At her feet, Zeus lay still, calm as ever, his head resting on his paws. The conversation hummed with talk of regulations. District policies were clear. Therapy animals required paperwork, approval, and documentation. None of that had been followed here. And even with training, some families were still uncomfortable with dogs around their children. Allergy concerns were raised, the risk of reactions too high. One wrong move could make the school liable. Claire sat, letting the argument swirl around her like static. To some, Zeus was still seen as a liability, an exception to the rules, a disruption. But to Claire and Maya, he was life. He was security. Mrs. Carter sat silently until the last objection faded into the room's heavy quiet. Then, slowly, she stood, not in a rush, but with the weight of something far more important on her heart. She reached into her folder, her fingers trembling slightly. Every eye in the room followed her as she pulled out a crumpled sheet of paper. It was just a math worksheet, nothing special. "I dropped this," she said quietly, her voice calm but unwavering. "I dropped it the moment I thought Maya was going to die." No one spoke, not even those who had been the most vocal. Mrs. Carter held the paper up, staring at it for a long, silent moment before lowering it to her side. "I know the rules," she continued, her voice breaking ever so slightly. "I respect the policies, but I also respect children, all children. And Maya." Her voice cracked for the first time. "Maya deserves to be here. She deserves to learn to laugh, to sit in a classroom with her classmates, just like your children do." Her gaze shifted gently to the parents around the table. She wasn't angry, but there was something in her eyes, something far more disarming than anger. Disappointment. When we argue about allergies, about disruptions, I understand, truly. But when those arguments become walls that push a little girl into isolation, we're not protecting our kids. We're protecting our comfort. Mrs. Carter paused, her gaze falling on Zeus, still lying at Claire's feet. That dog didn't bark for attention. He barked to save her. He didn't hesitate. He didn't wait for permission. He acted because she needed him. Then she looked directly at Claire, and Claire didn't ask for special treatment. She asked for her daughter to stay alive and to feel normal. Even just for a few hours a day. The room was silent. The buzz of debate had vanished, replaced by stillness, deep and thoughtful. It wasn't a silence about rules anymore. It was a silence about reflection. Reflection that perhaps belonged to all of them. Mrs. Carter's voice softened as she posed the question everyone was now thinking. If your child were in the same class as Maya, what would you do? Would you choose comfort or compassion? The meeting continued after that, but the tone had changed. By the end of the week, something unexpected happened. The parents who had once been frustrated, fearful, or doubtful began to reach out. But this time, their messages weren't complaints. They were questions, genuine questions. What kind of training did the dog receive? Could we learn more about therapy animals? Can we meet Zeus before he comes back? Slowly the tone shifted, and Claire, grateful but determined, began working through her evenings, gathering every document she could, certifications, medical recommendations, and the behavior report from the Canine Therapy Center where Zeus had been trained since he was a pup. Claire wasn't asking for pity. She was asking for partnership. And the parents saw that. By Monday, the school had organized another meeting, not to defend Zeus, but to introduce him. Claire stood with her daughter, beside Zeus, answering each question with clear, measured grace. Zeus sat quietly through it all, as if he understood. The room, once hesitant, had finally opened its heart. When it came time to vote, the decision was unanimous. Every family signed their consent, and Zeus was officially approved as Maya's in-class guardian companion. The next morning, as Maya walked through the school gates with Zeus by her side, something felt different. It wasn't just acceptance. It was belonging. Children waved. Parents gave Claire knowing, quiet nods. Even the principal, who had once stood in opposition, patted Zeus on the head as they passed. Inside the classroom, Mrs. Carter greeted them with a smile, welcoming both of them like it was the most natural thing in the world. But the most beautiful moment came later, when Maya stepped outside for recess. She laughed. Not the quiet, tentative giggle she used to hide behind, but a real laugh, loud, joyful, the kind of laugh that makes everyone around her smile. Maya was playing tag. Her little legs moved carefully, her arms stretched wide. Zeus followed a few paces behind, always watchful but no longer concerned. Claire watched from a distance, one hand pressed against her heart. For the first time in a long time, Maya wasn't just surviving school. She was living.